High above the Old Bailey stands a statue of Justice. She holds a sword in her right hand and the scales of justice in her left. These days I am not sure that the sword of justice is still relevant. Murderers face hours of consultation on a psychiatrist's couch rather than face the death penalty. We have created a judicial system that puts emphasis on protecting everybody's rights whilst overlooking their wrongs. The scales of justice are equally redundant because the standard of justice we get is now based on our ability to pay. The truth is, justice is something of a lottery. It's available to some and not others. Phil Berryman suffered a grave injustice after a trivial dispute with a nightclub owner. This resulted in him enduring a nightmarish journey that took him halfway around the world, landed him in prison and ended with his attempted murder.
November 1990, it was November the 25th, it was my brother's birthday. Walked into a nightclub in Stockton and a big guy called John DePledge attacked me with another guy called John Layton. It was meant to be some sort of punishment beating paid for by a nightclub owner from Middlesbrough. It all went wrong because I got my ear bitten off and quite a few injuries. I was still standing at the end of the fracas and they ran off down the road. Transpired later on that the police arrested him and they charged him with wounding with intent. He had a bit of a reputation for biting people's noses and fingers off in fights and such as that. I had no intentions of going through with the court case, but it was to prove that I wasn't scared of the guy. Then there was all threats. A house got shot up, shot up my Porsche. Eventually, I had no choice really to sort it out. I didn't want to hurt him, but I wanted somebody heavy enough to be able to scare him so that it was over and done with.
The man who was deemed scary enough to rein in DePledge was Newcastle villain Paddy Conroy.
So I went to Conroy in Newcastle through the guy from Hartlepool, and they got hold of him, warned him. He didn't get hurt, but it was all over and done with by then. And I would have been quite happy to pay £5,000–10,000, whatever the deal was. Unfortunately, I then became indebted to them, and because of my expertise in the boat business, I've been sailing since I was sort of 10 years old, and they were trying to break into the smuggling business, if you like, from Morocco. And they got me involved with various projects, acquiring and looking at different boats, you know, getting involved with stuff like that, which turned into a bit of a nightmare, to be honest. Rather than take money from me, it was then I became asked to do this and that, and originally I'd bought a boat for them, or on behalf of them, in Mallorca, off an old pal of mine, and that went badly wrong on the south coast of Spain. So the next operation was the tug in Scotland.
Conroy and his gang had purchased a tug that was moored in Campbelltown, Scotland. Although unseaworthy, Conroy sent Berryman to make makeshift repairs so that the vehicle could be used to smuggle drugs from North Africa.
When we arrived there, we were supposedly looking for a tug, and we were going to go and see the harbour master. And when we didn't have to look for it, the tug was sort of, if you like, moored there. The customs office was 20 metres behind us, above a shop that was actually the tourist information board. And I looked down and there's these two guys, and they're both smoking, they had all brand new gear on, like they'd never done a day's work in their lives, and they're smoking these big joints. I went down, I said, look lads, you know, you look a bit obvious, you know, you're standing and smoking joints and et cetera, you're supposed to, you're bringing attention to the job, you know? And he just opened up his coat, he went, here man, I'm a fucking heavy. I'm here to watch this fucking boat, right? I'm not a labourer. And he showed me this big gun. We were in this Campbelltown. So we went to the local, I said, look, let's go and get a cup of tea. So we've organised a cup of tea, and he's organised a milkshake. Now his attitude was that my tea came first, the guy was taking the piss, so he threatened to throw the guy through the window because the milkshake was coming after the coffee, and his attitude, well, his reasoning was that it would take less time to make the milkshake because you didn't have to boil the kettle. Then they said, look, why don't you stay the night, and we're going to go to this dance venue type thing. And because the lads are all coming up, they'd organised a whole bunch of local villains from Newcastle to come up to this place because everything was laid around on shore. You know, there was quad bikes and machinery and behind chain link fences. If it was in Newcastle, everything would have been gone. But the reason there was no crime in Campbelltown is it was because there's only one place at the end of this long road, and there's no crime because there's nowhere to run. Everybody left everything open. There was vans in the street full of parcels with the keys in and the engines running. Nobody did anything. So they saw this as a paradise for the lads, and they would organise everybody to come up at the weekend, and everything they needed for this tug, they'd been out and shoplifted and kept them. You know, they had money to spend, but they went and nicked everything around camp. There was a mini crime wave happened in Campbelltown while they were there. They went to this dance where the local guys were the doormen, if you like. Next thing you know, they've got these two were having this fight. They've been passing dodgy £20 notes, and it came on top. So the next thing you know, there's this great big fight. Glover went back and he smashed the place up, tables, chairs, the bar, everything's all smashed to pieces. And they still continued with the job. I rang Conroy, I said, what the, you know, it's on top, mate. Oh, you want to think yourself lucky you didn't lose, otherwise you'd gone back and shot them. And
The bungling mariners never left the harbour as the vessel sank before entering the breakwater.
you know, there was no way they were going to get away with it. This boat would stick out like a sore thumb anywhere it went. It was like 50-year-old or something like that, and hadn't been to sea for God knows how long.
Despite offering to pay Conroy for warning off his tormentor and working unpaid for weeks, Berryman was still deemed to be in his debt. However, when Conroy was remanded in custody to await trial for kidnap and torture, Berryman thought that his debt was nil and void. Sadly for Berryman, his joy was short-lived.
Conroy then got arrested for the kidnap and torture of Billy Collier. And as far as I was concerned, that was it. It was over. It was finished with. And I was ecstatic, to be honest. And then, of course, he escaped. I was then put under pressure to take him abroad. And he was then the most wanted man, if you like, in England. He told me there was a job in Tenerife where there was 5 tons of hashish to pick up, which had come from Pakistan, out of Afghanistan, and it was on a freighter. I went back to the UK. Conroy got real paranoid, thought that the job had been done by other people and he'd been cut out of it, as had happened a year or two before, and demanded I come back through to Spain to see him. Otherwise there was going to be trouble, they were going to set fire to my house, etc., etc. So I flew out to meet Conroy and explained that my boat was still where it was in Gibraltar, and that the Melanie hadn't collected any goods from Morocco. He told me then that I had to sail the boat down to Tenerife and that the crew would then be waiting for me there. I went to Casablanca, a place called Mohammedia, where we waited for 3 or 4 days, and I met one of their crew. He said that it wasn't Tenerife anymore, that it was going to be Dakar. I rang Conroy, and then I was threatened that I would have to sail the boat to Dakar, or they were going to set fire to my house with my kids in it, in Billingham. So I sailed down to Dakar after a pretty horrendous trip, and I tried to get out there, but I got beaten in Dakar by these people. We were left basically with no choice but to sail the boat back. We left Dakar, met a freighter about 180 miles off Guinea, where we collected 3.7 tons of hashish. They didn't give us any fuel, they took our food off us, and left us basically damaged, and we had an horrendous trip back. We changed the appearance of the boat, etc., and we sailed straight into a trap.
There's a way to make an entrance.
This is my destiny.
It was now a conspiracy of witches.
Download Veely today.
70 or 80 Customs and Excise and North and Regional Crime Squad, they were all waiting, and arrested Conroy in Malaga the next day.
Facing a 10 to 15-year prison sentence, Berryman could take no more and told the authorities of his ordeal. According to the law, if you are forced to commit a crime, there is a defence known as duress, and that is how Berryman pleaded when he eventually stood trial.
There was 3 of us charged with 3.7 tons of cannabis.
So what was the outcome of the being charged?
Well, we did 15 months on remand. My 2 co-defendants bottled it and pleaded guilty, and I went on with a full duress defence and proved it in court. And we lost all the boats because the other 2 guys pleaded guilty, but I was still free, and I was free of Conroy because he then was convicted for his kidnap and torture. They got 10 and 11 years.
Berryman may well have been free, but free from Conroy he was not. In fact, the worst was yet to come.
I got out, I think it was November the 4th, 1995, and then I had with me all of the unused evidence, which I'd applied for, because I got all of Conroy's papers and such as that, and it proved basically that Conroy's firm had paid informers in it, and I had all this paperwork, and his boxer pal came through and asked me if I could go through to a yard in Hartlepool. I think it was about the 13th of January, I'd been out maybe 2 months, to help with Conroy's appeal. Conroy was going to have an appeal, so I went armed with all these documents that proved everything. And when I got there, 3 guys jumped out with bits of wood with nails in. They're all masked up and gloved up, heads covered. What sort of
suits were they wearing?
There were overalls with bags over their head with their eyes and big gloves, big welded gloves on, and they had big lumps of wood with nails in, and they just set about me and beat me all over the floor. And they beat me for 2 or 3 hours. I had 130 separate injuries. They hit my legs with ball peen hammers and tried to break my legs. They thought they had broken my legs. I had 27 staples in the back of my head, teeth knocked out, broken ribs, well, you name it. I was just beaten all over. I was rolling around the floor while they just beat me up. I knew I was in for a good kicking, but I didn't think they'd intended to kill me. But knowing the organisational skills of this firm anyway, anything could go wrong.
Another man who suffered a terrible injustice as a result of a favour was Steve Nipper Ellis. He was kind enough to allow a friend named Pat Tate to move into his home because he had nowhere else to live. When Tate's friend Tony Tucker turned on Ellis over a childish remark he had made, Tate, Tucker and others embarked upon a campaign of terror that was not only directed at Ellis, but his father and young sisters.
I first met Pat Tate in 1989 when I was in Chelmsford. That's where Pat was. Pat Tate turned up in Chelmsford. He was massive, you couldn't miss him. And he used to go down to the gym. I used to train, try and do my bit of training. And Pat and I became mates, used to train together. I got out in 91, but Pat had already got a 10 by then, 10 years. So he was down in Swaleside. I used to go down and see him. We stayed in touch, became good mates. And when he got out in 94, he came to stay with me in my flat. Basically, he got out. Sarah, his girlfriend, was pregnant. Or I think she'd given birth then. And she didn't have room in her flat. So Pat come and stayed with me. And we sort of led our life of criminal activities. Through him, I got introduced to Tony Tucker and Craig Rolfe.
Tony Tucker and Craig Rolfe were key members of the Essex Boys firm that I unwittingly formed. 38-year-old Tucker was a huge man who liked to throw his weight around and give the impression that he was in control. His dominance in the gang attracted lots of impressionable young girls. Despite having a living girlfriend, he would date countless females and had formed a relationship with a 15-year-old named Donna.
Donna's phoned me up one Sunday night. Said, "Where's Tony?" I said, "Well, he's home with Aaron, isn't he? Probably shaking the arse off her by now." Anyway, she told Tony, and 10 days later, Pat and I had to go out for an ID parade where we bashed up some guy who'd robbed one of the girls who was working for Pat. Tony's come round to my flat that morning when we was due to go for the ID parade. And he had a key. I'd give him the key. He was a mug that I was. He had a key, and he's walked in with Pete Cuffey and Craig Rolfe, and he said, "Where's the tool?" Meaning the .22 revolver that it was just at my place. So I said, "Oh, hang on." So I got it. I got the revolver out. I got the gun out. It was under the stairs, so I got it out. I said, "Look, it's clean. It's loaded." I said, "Be careful." With that, he had the gun in his right hand, and he grabbed me by the throat and pushed me against the wall. And he was just banging the gun in my head, and he kept saying, "Fuck my bird up the arse, fuck my bird up the arse. I'll show you what you can do." And I didn't know what he was referring to. He was referring to when Donna had phoned me up and said, "Where's Tony?" And I said, "Oh, he's probably at home fucking the arse off Anna by now." So he kept bashing this gun in my head, and I just kept thinking I'm dead. I knew it was loaded, so I'd loaded it. And I was just thinking, "Oh, I'm dead," you know. And he kept just saying, "Fuck my bird up the arse, fuck my bird up the arse. I'm going to show you what this can do." With that, he took me by the throat round to the back bedroom, put me on the bed. I think he knelt over me, or he was in front of me, and he was going, "I'm going to show." He kept saying he was frothing His eyes were out his nut. And he kept saying, I'm going to show you what this can do. So anyway, after how long he got off me, put the gun away, pulled out a meat cleaver, and he said, your hand or your foot? I just thought, well, if you take off my foot, I won't be able to run. If you take off my hand, I'll still shoot you, prick. So I held out my right hand, shut my eyes, thought, I'm going to scream, I'm going to cry, but I'm going to kill you. And I kept thinking, I'm going to scream, I'm going to cry, but I'm going to kill you. Nothing happened. I don't know after how long. I looked up, and he was standing there grinning with that. He put the, it was a meat cleaver, he put it back in his top, and he walked out of the room, and I got off bed and went, what the fuck have I done, Tucker? And he turned back round, pulled out the meat cleaver, as if, and he went like that to hit me on the head, and I sort of do it. Pete Cuffey pushed me in the room, and he went, let him calm down, let him calm down. I said, I haven't done anything. And after that, it went totally bonkers. I went down for the ID parade. Pat never showed up. The guy had been told, basically, drop it. When I come out the police station and got told it was dropped, I then phoned up Pat, said I was out of order for what I'd done. And I said, what have I done? Phoned Tony. Tony said, you told my bird that I fuck her up. I said, I never said that. And he said, well, we'll come around and sort it out. I said, well, don't bother. I said, I won't be there. Went up to London, got the handgun, bought the bulletproof, come back, went and got a pump action off someone. I used to drive around looking for Pat, Tony and Craig. Basically, it was me against them.
Ellis was not driven by anger, it was fear. The trio had threatened to execute him, threatened his father, and threatened to cut his younger sister's fingers off. The most dangerous man is a frightened man in a corner. Ellis had thrown a brick through Tate's bathroom window, and when he peered outside to see who was responsible, Ellis shot him.
One night, Pat got shot, and a couple of days later, I found Tony and Craig at the back of my house. I walked up the back alleyway, and I see them. Before they see me, I pulled out the gun, took a shot at Tony. I pulled out the gun, Tony went on the floor, he was going, ah, literally screaming like a little girl. Not screaming, he was whimpering like a little kid. The gun misfired. He looked up, seen me, he goes, I'm going to get you for that now. Nick, I went, you are here, you prick. Pulled the gun, bullet went. He ran off, I pulled out a pump, chased him up the road, him and Craig up the road. They got away. But then Pat was in hospital after he got shot the first time, and he made a statement saying it was me. And then Tony and Craig made a statement saying I chased him up the road with pump action. Basically all grassed me up, and I eventually got nicked with a gun.
Did you want to kill him because you thought you were a tough guy, or would you want to do it through fear, for the intimidation?
I had no choice. Couldn't go to the police and say, look, I've been threatened by Pat, Tony and Craig. So what are they going to do? Pull them in and say, naughty, naughty, don't threaten Nipper. And then I'm a grass as well. I had no choice.
Was it just pressure on you, though? Or did they...
They threatened my family.
What did they do to your family?
Threatened to kidnap one of my... They threatened to kidnap my sisters. I've got 5 sisters. And they threatened to kidnap one of them and take her fingers off until I was man enough to go and face them. My dad was threatened numerous occasions. They went round there. They sent somebody round there. My dad said a guy was there with a gun. I don't know. There was numerous occasions, and when they threatened my sister, right, I didn't know what sister it was. They said they were going to chop her fingers off. So got my sisters out of school. I had a shotgun. My dad had a shotgun. I was at the front gate. My dad was at the back gate. Stepmum went in and got my sisters. They came out. They disappeared. When we said my family just went, and it was just me against them because I had no choice. It was my family. And I even phoned up that fucking arsehole Colton Leach, because there was no way out. And I said, Colton, stick a bullet in my head, because I've got no choice. He just said he couldn't. He wanted to know what happened. So I said, basically, they're after my family. And he said, well, I don't agree with that. And he had a word with Tony, and they said, leave town, and we'll leave your family alone. After they'd all grasped me up, and...
So how did you feel when you heard they'd been murdered?
Various different happy feelings. And everyone seems to think I had something to do with the actual killings of them when they actually got killed in the Range Rover. You know, some people think I'm some sort of frigging nutcase who goes around shooting people.
Steve Ellis was never charged with shooting Pat Tate, but he did serve a lengthy prison sentence for the possession of firearms. His tormentors, Tucker, Tate and Rolfe, were dealt summary justice a year later when they were shot through the head as they sat in their Range Rover, which was parked down a deserted farm track. Inevitably, bullies do get their comeuppance, as former professional boxer and self-confessed former bully Dominic Negus concedes.
As my career went, to be honest, I wasted my career, and it was a bit of a shame really, because like when I was growing up, I thought that was going to be the be all and end all. I was going to fight with world titles, get the house, get the cars, have the woman, have the kids, and I'm afraid it never worked out that way. Because then when I started doing the door work, and then I was boxing, them all training, and I never boxed till I was 21. I was doing the doors just after my 19th birthday. I started 89 I started. And that's when it all changed. Well, you know what it comes hand in hand, you know. And that geezer, you know, you think you're on the door with your pals, and that geezer's right upset, so yeah, well, do you know someone that can do it? Well, give him a right hand. Now, of course, before you know it, I was earning, like, not false, but I was earning money being a bloody idiot, you know what I mean? Bashing people up for whatever. And then get involved in like the debt collecting side of things. It brought like I don't know, I suppose the inner child out in me, really, you know, and it's just, to be honest, it ruined everything in the end. And then, obviously, after the old Harrison thing, he sort of like went downhill a little bit then.
As Dominic became more involved in criminality, his promising boxing career suffered. He began using steroids to bulk himself up, but they had an effect on his mind. He became extremely angry and aggressive. During a televised bout at Wembley against Olympic champion Audley Harrison, Dominic headbutted his opponent and effectively ended his own career.
A bit of a bad round, you know, about the fourth round, the half pushed me through the ropes. So I got up and, you know, the headbutt went in, and then, I mean, it changed the fight dramatically for me, went all in my favour then. But then it was like, then obviously after the fight, and that's what I try and tell the kids, you know, I was 15 stone 3 months before that fight, and also I come to scales at 17 stone, and I've been so cheat a little bit. I've, you know, got in the gear, like the steroids, which I shouldn't have done. And as you know, even if I did win that fight, I wouldn't have deserved it because I cheated. And look, and I've got a massive ego, you know what I mean? We've all got pride. You know, worst thing for me, I've got a very low self-esteem. So them two things, or them three, don't work well together. But then what it was, I was becoming a pain in people's arses, and you know, even though I was good at certain things, and I was, you know, I basically got a little bit big for my boots.
Dominic had picked on the wrong people, and they, like the killers of Tucker Tate and Rolfe, wanted their bloody revenge.
I was in the gym one night, doing my stuff, you know, and then obviously so I've gone in the change room to get changed, and I still remember it was yesterday. I turned around, all of a sudden there's these three fellas there, big old units. One's pulled the gun out on me. I thought, well, here we go. This is going to hurt a little bit. And then all of a sudden I backed up, and all of a sudden I've got done in the nut with an axe, and basically they had a little go at me. And to be honest with you, that was for me the beginning of the end of that life, because it made me realise I wasn't perhaps as powerful as I thought I was. If I'm being honest with you, I deserved it. Not, you know, I don't know what it was about, and I don't care what it was about, and that's you know, let sleeping dogs lie. But I so deserved what I got that night, and I can remember it like yesterday, and it's a good thing for me, because like, I wake up in the morning sometimes, and I feel so, I can go back doing this, and I look at what they did to me, and I thought, you know what, I ain't put my family through that. I get really paranoid about phone calls, withheld phone calls, or not knowing the number. I think, who's this, who's that? And I can't help the paranoia. Paranoia is a really bad thing for me. But it's not way, you know, but it makes me right edgy. But sometimes it keeps you alive sometimes, because I might have changed for 10 years, but there's people out there that I know look at themselves in the mirror every morning and they have to see what I've done to them. But, you know, I'll put my hand on my heart, and I mean this. Then three fellas, whoever they are, I'll shake their hand, I've said it before, and I'll buy them a drink, because they made me realise perhaps what a tosser I'd become, because it's like I'd become someone I really despised. I'd become a bully. I was going to end up, one was going to be in prison, and one was going to be dead. And listen, the second one nearly happened.
Some say Scottish villain William Loban has escaped justice for allegedly being involved in the murder of 3 people: Arthur Thompson Jr., Joe Hanlon and Bobby Glover. The police have never arrested Loban in relation to these deaths, so why would someone accuse Loban of such heinous crimes? He believes the killer does so to deflect attention away from their own guilt. Loban's accuser, Paul Ferris, claims it could only have been Loban who was involved in the killings. Regardless of who is right and who is wrong, Loban is innocent in the eyes of the law, yet he has been forced to live in hiding and has suffered abuse and allegations for more than 20 years. Ironically, Paul Ferris had once been his associate, although Loban claims they were more like brothers. Loban agreed to meet me at a secret location to tell his side of the story.
I'm in Shotts Prison with Mick Keeley as a young offender. During that time, this is when I met who would later become my #1 adversary, a man by the name of Paul Ferris. I know all about that he's involved with Thompson and all the rest of it. Arthur Thompson was the godfather of Glasgow. They called him the godfather. He was the top dog. Arthur controlled most of crime in Glasgow, it's fair to say. I didn't know to what extent at this stage when I'm out and about on the run, when I'm hooking up with Ferris, okay? So take that on board as well. But I know it's heavy stuff that's going on, right? And people are not messing about. So the Thompsons are people that you don't really want to be crossing. He's a very dangerous man with a big reputation. Paul Ferris, he was doing a 3-year sentence. The night before he's discharged from Shotts, he comes up to my cell and we have a chat, as you do. You know, it's a going away chat. And he wrote his phone number out. It was the number of the cottage bar. I didn't know this thing, but this was the number he's gave me. When you get out, come, give us a phone, hook me up, you know, we'll take it from there. I thought, oh, result. Right. Just told me, hook up, phone up, you know. I said, this is the way forward here.
When Loban was eventually released, he rang Paul Ferris and met him at the cottage bar.
And it was we got the pleasantries out the way, shaking hands, and how you doing? I says, look, a big friend of mine who runs a nightclub. It's called The Gloss. And this thing was like, you know, it was like a palace. It was in 3 different levels. I think it must have been about 4 of us, plus Ferris's bird and a friend of hers on tow. So we went in 2 separate cars to Gloss. Ferris produces some acid tablets. Let's go for it. Going to have a good night here. I've got a Beretta handgun taped to my thigh. I ain't said nothing to Ferris or his crew about me being armed, loaded with a handgun on me at this stage, right? And I've kept that nice and quiet. So the effects of the acid, the LSD, are now starting to take effect quickly as well, I must say. You know, I'm bloody hallucinating. I'm seeing double. So the para started kicking, right? And I says, Paul, will you come to the toilet with me? I want to speak to you. Aye, let's go. We've zigzagged our way through the dancers, right? Big place. We've got to the toilet and we went in a cubicle that barely one person could fit in. You know, there's 2 of us squeezed in here, right? I feel like this in my strides, my trousers, and I've took my trousers down. I must have been thinking, what's going on here? No, but all kidding aside, right, I've pulled it. I went, look, I'm carrying this handgun here. I says, but the reason I'm carrying it is because I've got issues with enemies of the Shannons, blah, blah, blah. You know, it's just the way I'm telling you now that I've got it, so you know now, right? Just letting you know. He turned round and he says to me, right after that, he says, Gibby, can I accept you as a brother? I says, of course you can. Great feeling. We hugged in that cubicle, right? He said, can I accept you as a brother? He's always denied it, right? He denied it, son. But can I accept you, brother? Of course you can. And that was us. I thought we were like bonded now.
Interpretation is halfway between what things really mean and what you'd like them to mean. Loban clearly believed that whilst high on LSD, he and Ferris had entered into some sort of meaningful brotherhood. Ferris interpreted his meeting with Loban as uneventful and meaningless. Aware that Loban was in awe of him, Ferris did what villains do. He used him. According to Loban, Ferris helped him secure a flat and gave him work smuggling drugs from London to Glasgow.
I ended up getting a flat down in London that through some people that he knew. So I was living in a flashy flat, rent-free. And then the next thing, the phone goes and it was him. And he says, can you bring back this package for me? And immediately I thought, oh no, this is no brotherly behaviour. Anyway, this guy's appeared at the house with a package. Apparently, it was the size of a bag of sugar. Now, I walked through Heathrow Airport with that bag of sugar stuck down my waistband. Apparently there was a quote, 250 grams worth of acid tabs in these flints or whatever. That would have got me a 12-year sentence. Is that the sort of thing that you do with your brothers? No. So from that moment, I began to see things just a wee bit different. I thought, this is no right, this,
With Loban on board, the London end of Ferris's operation ran smoothly, but back in Glasgow he had fallen out with the Thompson family. Arthur Thompson Jr. began issuing death threats from the safety of his prison cell. There was no response when young Arthur was behind bars, but on the day he was released, he was gunned down outside his father's home.
I was in Glover's house with Paul Ferris, Robert Glover and Joe Hanlon. I did not know what was going down this night. The three of them were up in the room, sort of laughing and joking, and I could hear them. They were noisy. I'm downstairs on my own. The three of them have come downstairs. Joe Hanlon's got a fake moustache on. He's carrying a taxi registration plate, or what appears to be a taxi registration plate. And he's put it into a carrier bag. Ferris, as he's coming down the stair, he's threw this weapon at me, which was a gun of some description, and I caught it in midair. I had no choice. I don't know why he did this, but I thought, and I've took my prints off it, just as I would do, and I've gave him it back. Bobby Glover says to me, look, Billy, Gibby, whatever, can you look after my son Robert until we get back? I says, of course I can, no problem. Right, okay. And I had a holdall lying in Glover's lounge, which contained some robbing gear that I used. It contained a blonde wig, gloves, that sort of stuff. And I says to Ferris, I says, hey, by the way, before you go, still don't know what they're going to do. I says, I've got this wig in the bag. I says, here, is that any use to you? And he's took it and he's tried it on. We passed comments on it. We had a wee laugh and joke about it. And he took it with him, that wig. So they left. Sometime later, Glover comes back, flustered, nervous, panicky. They've done something. It was obvious something's went down, and it was all over his face. So we were anxious. I couldn't sleep. Glover couldn't sleep. And then round about 6 o'clock in the morning, Bobby Glover's came up and he went, he's croaked it. That was the words he used. Anyway, Arthur Thompson had been shot 3 times in the back. Forget about this being shot up the anus and all the rest of it. It all came out in court. The man was shot in the back 3 times. One of the bullets hit off his, I think it was his rib cage. It was a 2-2, just a small bullet, and it ricocheted all over the place and went through his heart, pierced his heart. Ferris, straight to London. So of course the next day, this is less than 24 hours after the murder, I'm on a train down to London. I knocks on the door in the flat where I know Ferris is. He says, look, you can't stay here. You can stay the night, but you're going to have to leave tomorrow. I says, well, I had nowhere to go, Paul. I had to come here, Yeah, look, my brother, we're meant to be brothers. You can stay the night, but you're going to have to leave tomorrow. It was in the morning, I can remember, never forget it, I'm playing Elton John on repeat. Elton John songs on repeat. Phone still going constantly. I walked back out with the same 2 holdalls that I'd walked in with. And it was cheerio.
After leaving Ferris's flat, Loban returned to Glasgow, where he met up with one of Glasgow's most infamous villains, Tam the licensee McGraw. He had a deep-seated hatred of Ferris and was keen to take Arthur Thompson's crown. Some believe that McGraw wanted to recruit Loban to murder Ferris's friends so that Thompson would be blamed and imprisoned. Conspiracy theories are, of course, just theories, but after Arthur Thompson Jr.'s murder, the body count could only keep rising.
There was a friend of mine who had a flat During the time in that flat, this is when I met McGraw, because McGraw was always on the sidelines of things. So I was still keeping in touch with like Glover. Not so much Hanlon, because, like I say, me and Joe, we never had any well, there's no mobile phones there anyway, back then, but there was no really much contact. My only contact was with Robert Glover and McGraw. Tam McGraw was predominantly a drug dealer, a big drug dealer, you know, involved in £1 million deals, importing drugs from abroad, you know, in about it in a big way. A major player within the drugs world. So McGraw would come to see me at the flat, came to see me on one occasion, came several times but would sit in the car outside. Managed to get him upstairs into the flat one time, and he handed me a big bundle of cash, must have been 500 quid, you know. So there's some spending money for you. You know, just sort of just keeping things nice and sweet, you know. The next meeting, he's in the car downstairs. He says to me, he says, "Billy, Gibby, Paul wants you to take out the Olsen." I went, "What, old Arthur Thompson?" "Aye, he wants you to shoot him."
Whether Tam McGraw wanted Thompson Sr. murdered so he could take his crown, or Ferris wanted him killed to remove the threat of reprisal, it has never been explained.
I phoned Glover's house, which wasn't unusual. I phoned his house umpteen times. I stayed with him 3 or 4 nights. So it wasn't something unusual or something out of the blue, you know. I phoned him up and told him my position. I said, you know, I'm sitting in this flat, I don't know what to do. You know, I've been to see Paul, what's happening? What do we do? So him and Joe Hanlon came to see me outside, and they never came up to the flat. None of them did. None of them were in that flat, apart from McGraw. He came down in a car. It was a blue Ford Orion Gear, a car McGraw owned and was used as a taxi. Okay, this Ford Orion Gear. This was the car they turned up in, basically down from the flat where I'm living. I got into the back of the car. Joe Hanlon was driving, and Bobby Glover was in the front. And I explained the situation. I said, you know, and what do I do? You know, can't keep living like this. The heat's right on and stuff like that, you know, and at least they're gonna, you know, not so much help me out, right? There's been important money and all that, nothing to do with that. But anyway, we spoke for no more than 5, 6, 7 minutes, no more than that. It was a quick, very quick meeting, I suppose, to give me reassurance, look, everything's cool, everything's okay. And they left, and they were in a hurry because it was Hanlon, Joe Hanlon, who says, "Look, hurry up, we've got to go and see Tam McGraw."
The following morning, Hanlon and Glover were found shot dead. Their bodies had been left on a car on the route Thompson Jr.'s funeral cortege was due to take. They had been shot in the head and chest. Shortly after the murders, Ferris was charged with killing Thompson and stood trial. He pleaded not guilty and denied any involvement in his former adversary's death.
Paul Ferris's trial was the longest ever murder trial in Scottish legal history. The press were going crazy, you know, it was on the news every night. You know, Scotland had never seen nothing like this before. He knows he's in trouble. His 2 pals have just been killed, right? He's gave an order for me to do this and that. He doesn't know what's happened now. It's just all any wee bit of control that he had left of the game, gone. And he thinks that more than likely, or the good chances are, is that he's going to get found guilty for that, you know? So, him being in that case, you know, I think he would have done anything, he would have pulled any stroke, any move that he could in order to get himself, in order to worm himself out of it, you know, because the game was changing the minute he did all that. It had never been heard of before, you know. So much incrimination, you know, it was a straight point the finger. He stood and says to the jury, "William, and he put his hands in the air and says, I never shot that man." Blatant lie. It was William Lobbin that shot him. Now, whether people want to believe that or not, the jury certainly did, and acquitted him. But not on that, there was a catalogue of, you know, the prosecution just sort of messed the whole thing up, and they know they did. okay? But, you know, they acquitted him on that. So there was, maybe still is, people out there who think I did, and maybe he was telling the truth.
The longest trial in Scottish history raised more questions than it answered. Ferris was acquitted, but his allegation in the dock placed Loban centre stage. The jurors had clearly believed Ferris, and Ferris had said that Loban had not only murdered Thompson, but he was also responsible for setting up Hanlon and Glover. True, false, probable, or unlikely, it mattered not. It was a great story, and so the press published it regardless. William Loban was forced to go on the run, and spent the next 2 decades living as if he had indeed pulled the trigger.
Tam McGraw come to visit you and ask you to kill Arthur.
Yeah.
It wasn't Tam McGraw coming to visit you to ask you to set up Hanlon and Glover.
No. Oh, no, not at all. And I must make that very clear. Right? Can't emphasise that enough. The order was for old Arthur Thompson to be whacked. Well, I've had to live with it for over 23 years. No charges have ever been brought against me. The charges will ever be brought against me because, quite simply, I had nothing to do with the whole lot of it. I've been mentioned in no less than 7 true crime books. Not always in a good, positive fashion either. You know, I've been mentioned in tabloid newspapers on countless occasions, right? I've got stacks of them, you know. For 23 years, 24 years, this has been going on. You know, every now and again, something new will pop up. My name will be fired into the frame. It's never ending. You know, it just takes the life right away from you. You know, you can't live your life as a normal human being anymore because that's been ripped from you.
I doubt that there is much, if any, sympathy for Berryman, Ellis, Negus or Loban. They chose to associate with criminals, and so they shouldn't be overly surprised that they became victims. But surely such an understandable attitude goes against the very spirit of our judicial system. We should not turn our back on victims simply because of the company that they keep. I personally do not believe in justice. We are promised that in the next world, whilst here on earth, all we really have is the law.
All you gangsters, arrow clowns who are shooting up the town.